Hi guys, welcome back. In this lesson we're going to look at chord extensions. So I was just playing you the head of the tune Misty using a mixture of chord extensions including ninths, 11ths and 13ths. So extensions give chords a richer sound and they make your playing sound much more colourful and interesting. In this lesson I'm going to provide an introduction to chord extensions, explaining what they are and where they come from. And I'm then going to give you some examples of the common chord extensions that you can apply to your playing today. So first of all, what are ninths, 11ths and 13ths? Well, to build a 7th chord, we stack 4/3 on top of each other. So there's a C major 7 chord. We have the root, the 3rd, the 5th and the 7th. If we stack another 3rd on top of the 7th, we go beyond the octave, and this is where chord extensions come into play. So if we stack a 3rd on top of the 7th, we get the 9th. If we stack another 3rd on top of the 9th, we get the 11th. And if we stack another 3rd on top of the 11th, we get the 13th. So something to realise here is that the 9th is the same note as the 2. The 11th is the same note as the 4. And the 13th is the same note as the 6. So this can make it much quicker to find the 2nd and then move it up an octave to get the 9th. It's particularly useful when you're just starting out, so use that to your advantage. And in case you were wondering, if we stack another 3rd on top of the 13th, we get back to the root of the chord again. So you can see we now have C at the top and the bottom. So the 13th is the highest extension that you need to learn. Okay, so a chord is named by the highest extension that's present in the chord. So if we had a C minor chord that contained a 9, we'd call that a C minor 9 chord. If we had a C minor chord that had an 11th, we'd call that a C minor 11th chord. And if we had a C minor chord that contained a 9th and an 11th, it would still be called a C minor 11 chord, as the 11th is the highest extension. So you should also be aware that on lead sheets, chords are usually notated as 7ths, but you can play the chord however you like by adding 9ths, 11ths and 13ths. So this is part of the freedom you have as a jazz musician. You can interpret and play the music however you want to. Right, so I'm going to group major and minor chord extensions together, and then we're going to look at dominant chord extensions separately. Here's a C major 9 and a C minor 9. So both of these chords are in root position, which means the root's on the bottom. Something to notice is the only difference between these two chords is the 3rd and the 7th, and that both minor and major chords share the same 9th. So this is what we call an open position 9th voicing, because the notes are spread out evenly, and if you listen to it, it has quite an open sound to it. So next we have closed position 9th voicings. Here's a C major 9 and a C minor 9 in closed position. So C major 9, C minor 9. So the closed position, it creates a denser sound than the open position voicing. And it also sounds nice if you drop the roots down an octave. Okay, so notice again that the only difference between these two chords is the 3rd and the 7th. If you're wondering where the closed position comes from, if we look at there's a C major open position. If we take those top two notes, so the B and the D, and put them underneath, we get the closed position voicing. So basically it's just an inversion of the top part of the chord. And the same with the minor 9th. Open position, take those top two notes and put them down here. Okay, so here's another voicing for a 9th chord. This time we've dropped the 5th down into the left hand. So here's the major one. And the minor one, drop the 3rd and the 7th by half a step. So dropping the 5th down into the left, it creates a richer sound. You can also play it down here. Okay, so now let's look at 11th voicings. If you have an 11th in a major chord, the vast majority of the time it's going to be a sharp 11th. This is because the natural 11th is what we call an avoid note in major keys, and this is due to the half step interval between the 3rd and the 11th. So half step intervals, they are very dissonant both harmonically and melodically, so you need to be careful when playing the natural 11th. Like, I'm not saying you can't play it, but just be aware that it is very dissonant, so treat it with caution. So instead, with major 11th chords, we sharpen the 11th, which creates a full step interval between the 3rd and the 4th, and it makes the chord sound much more palatable. So here's a major sharp 11 voicing. So this voicing is a variation of the Kenny Barron voicing. You can watch my lesson on that for more information. So now let's move on to minor 11th voicings. With minor 11th voicings, the natural 11th is always used as there's a hold step interval between the minor 3rd and the 11th. So that's a C minor 11 chord in root position. So here's some other examples of minor 11th chords. First we have the so what chord. So the so what chord is made of 4 stacked fourths and a major 3rd on top. So we have the root, 4th interval, 4th interval, 4th interval, and a major 3rd on top. Next we have the Kenny Barron voicing. So the Kenny Barron voicing is made up of 2 stacked perfect fifths in each hand that are separated by a minor 2nd interval. Finally, we have the Herbie Hancock voicing, which contains a 5th interval in the bass and then 4 notes in the right hand. So I've actually made dedicated lessons on all 3 of those voicings, so check those out for more information. Okay, so finally we have the 13th voicing. So you can play 13ths in major chords and it sounds good. Here's a couple of voicings that I like to use. So with this voicing, you do need quite large hands to stretch that open 10th interval in the left hand. If you can't reach the top E there, you can just play the root and the 5th. Also sounds nice. This little cluster up here gives the chord some tension and dissonance. So the second one is a lot closer together. We have the root, the 3rd, the 5th, the 13th, the 7th, the 9th, and the 3rd. So this one's much easier to play than the last one. So have a play around with those. Okay, so with regards to minor 13th voicings, this is another one that sounds very dissonant, and this is due to the half step interval between the 13th and the minor 7th. So for this reason, I can't say that I've ever played a minor 13th chord. So now let's take a look at dominant chord extensions. So dominant chords are by far the most complex of the chord types in terms of extensions. Pretty much anything goes here, and it's common to have combinations of 9ths, 11ths or 13ths in the same chord. Adding extensions to dominant chords really enhances the sound and it'll take your playing forward. Just like with the major and the minor chords, the first thing to do is to add the 9th. So here we have a root position C7 chord. If we drop the root and the 5th down into the left hand, we can play the 3, 5, flat 7 and the 9th in the right hand. One way to make this chord sound more colourful is to replace the 5th with the 13th. So remember that the 13th is the same as the 6th, but just up an octave. So this 13th voicing is very important. You'll need to learn that in your left hand as well, so being able to play that here for a C7 chord. You'll learn that in the lesson on rootless voicings and the rootless 2-5-1. So here's 4 more dominant chord voicings that you can use. The first chord is a dominant 13 spread across two hands by playing the roots 3rd and 7th in the left hand, and then the 9th and the 13th in the right hand. So the second one is an alternative with just the root and the 7th in the left hand, and then the 3rd, 13th and the 9th. So that creates a stack of fourths on top, which sounds good. We could alter that slightly and drop the top note down a whole step. So now we have the root on top. The final chord is a dominant 13th chord with the root 3rd and 7th in the left hand, and the 9th, sharp 11th, and 13th in the right hand. So this would be a C13 sharp 11. This is what we call an upper structure triad, as the 9th, the sharp 11th, and the 13th create a D major triad, which is superimposed above a C7 chord in the left hand. Right, let's look at the best way to practice chord extensions. I'd recommend starting off with 9th voicings, so start off with major 9ths. We start in the key of C. We're going to work around the circle of fourths, so we have the root in the left hand, 3, 5, 7 and 9 in the right hand. So C major 9, F major 9, B flat major 9, E flat major 9, A flat major 9, D flat major 9, F sharp major 9, B major 9, E major 9, A major 9, D major 9, G major 9, and back to C again. So then repeat that in closed position. So C major 9, F major 9, B flat major 9, E flat major 9, so on, all the way around the circle. Next, you want to repeat that same thing with the minor 9th voicing, so start in your open position, work your way all the way around, then repeat it again in the closed position, all the way around the circle. In terms of 11th voicings, I'd watch the individual lessons I've made on the Herbie Hancock voicing, the Kenny Barron voicing, and the So What voicing. So there's more information there, including specific info on how to practice those voicings in particular. Finally, with dominant chords, you want to practice the voicing that has root and 5 in the bass, and then the 3rd, 13th, flat 7 and 9. So if you have trouble finding that, you can start off just with root, 3, 5, 7, 9, and then just move the 5th up a whole step, and then move down to F. So root, 3, 5, 7, 9, just move the 5th up to the 13th, and then eventually you should be able to visualize it without having to play the 5th first. So you play C 13, F 13, B flat 13, E flat 13, A flat 13, D flat 13, and so on. Take that all the way around the circle. So if you have any questions with that, drop it in the comment box below. Hit the red subscribe button and get notified on the latest jazz piano lessons. And if you're not sure what to practice next, then here's 2 lesson suggestions for you. Click inside the video to go straight to the lessons.